I don't believe that when it comes to politics that Donald Trump is the natural. And I don't necessarily ascribe to these views that a lot of people have that Donald Trump is so incredibly smart that he can run circles around people and he plants little call them roadside incendiaries or IEDs, right? Is that the word? Improvised explosive devices for the media to trip all over itself. I mean, I don't think he intentionally sets out to do that, but I do believe that the media is, because of its herd mentality, and really because a lot of people who work in media aren't all that ambitious when it comes to chasing down a story, part of that herd mentality, that the media falls constantly into Donald Trump's explosive devices. I bring that up today. I'm talking a little bit about the last 48 hours of news coverage, which he knew was going to happen when he sent out the tweet heard around the world on Sunday. That was the tweet where he criticized the four horsewomen of the apocalypse. He did not name them. He didn't name them at all, but he certainly, it's like saying, yank their chains. Not that they're in chains. We're not trying to imply anything about that. I know the liberals out there saying, aha, did you hear what he just said? You have the same reaction that people in media happen to have with all of this. 6 minutes after 6 o'clock, Bill Colley with you on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. I will share a quick note with you, and I'll have to mention it a couple of more times during the program today. I was sitting here yesterday, and after about the first 90 minutes, I thought, this is strange. Telephones haven't rang in the studio. Well, sometimes we can go through long stretches. Consultant I worked for told me one time, he said, phone calls are no indicator of who's listening. Sometimes people are busy. If they're milking or they're doing something else in the course of the show, they can't necessarily pick up a telephone and call you. So I understand that. And about 3 hours into the show, I thought, well, okay, this is certainly peculiar. But I was busy doing the show, so I didn't have time to do a lot of troubleshooting. And at 10 o'clock, I got off the air, and I thought, I pulled out my cell phone, and I dialed the studio line, and my cell phone started ringing. But no lights flashed on the phone pad here in the studio. So I shut the phone off, my phone, dialed the number a second time. And again, there's a ringing going on, and yet nothing flashing on the studio phones in the KLIX nerve center. So with that, I hung up my phone again, and I picked up the phone here in the studio, and it was dead. So the engineers started looking into this after the program yesterday morning and discovered we were getting no phone calls into our building. So it's an external issue. And eventually, the phones are now working in the outer offices, but here in the studio, still working on that issue. So if you are to try, or you plan to try to call in today and I don't pick up the phone, it's not because I don't like you. It could come back on at any time. I don't know. I'll share that with you today. I do hope it's working tomorrow because I have a guest on. Tonight is the big meeting that may decide the fate of the Teton Redskins, taking place over in Driggs or Victor. I'm not sure where the school board is going to be meeting. And I'm going to be talking to some parents tomorrow. At least I'm scheduled to. So I am hopeful the phones will be working because that could be quite a big story by tomorrow morning. Let's get back to Donald Trump. Donald Trump made his comments essentially saying these people should go back to where they came from. Now, one of the four women of the apocalypse, Ilhan Omar, she came here as a migrant after having lived in a refugee camp. She was from Somalia. Trump mentioned that country was a basket case. Does anyone dispute that? I don't believe there's even a strong central government in Somalia today. I think it is still run by warlords and various factions throughout the land. So you can't sit here and say that something about Somalia, I brought it up yesterday. If you're going on vacation, it's not usually near the top of your list. Well, unless you enjoy some sort of torture fantasy and you'd like to go there and have your head lopped off slowly on camera by some Islamic fanatic. I'm sure that might attract a handful of you. For me, though, it's just not the way I like to spend a couple of weeks when I get away from work. I bring this up because it comes down to Mr. Trump is being called a racist. Everywhere you turn, mainstream media is calling him a racist. On the op-ed pages of the Washington Post today, pravda-on-the-potomac, I was looking over the pages and I came across This is the op-ed page online anywhere where I look at it. I don't get a hard copy of the paper. You open up that page, and there are 4 or 5 columns that are highlighted, a couple on one side and a couple on the other, and usually a picture in there too. And I think I saw the word racist 4 times. I didn't even scroll down, and I saw the word racist 4 times. Which brings us back to a point. Now, the op-ed pages, that's for opinions. And if people think Donald Trump's a racist and that's their opinion, they'll say it there. All right, I know how that works. But the lead story on the Post website today, and this is the news part of the paper, not the opinion part. It says this. Headline is, Trump says they hate our country. The Democrats he attacks say the country belongs to everyone. Well, that seems somewhat mild. And then you get to the first sentence. They had to have 3 reporters working on this story, but the first sentence says, President Trump on Monday defended his racist remarks. Now, that isn't even the end of the first sentence. That is a clause in the first sentence. Define racist and define racism. Racist would be if I didn't like you because of your skin color or your genetic background, if you had a Slavic ancestry or an African ancestry, or you had Russian ancestry or Asian ancestry, and I said nasty things about that because I thought I was better because I'm a white guy, yeah, that would be racist. On the other hand, if I insult your religious faith, if you're a Taoist or if you're a Zoroastrian or if you're a Muslim, that is not racism. It's not nice, I guess, to talk about other people's religions and badmouth it, but frankly, I hear it all the time when it comes to mine. It doesn't really bother me. I believe what I believe and I go on. So insulting somebody for their religious faith is, but here's the thing. Donald Trump never mentioned anybody's skin color or their ethnicity. And he never, ever, let me make this clear, said anything about religion in those tweets. It didn't come out. So he didn't say anything that would be racist. Let's make that clear. By definition. Now, this is the lead story in today's Pravda-on-the-Potomac. This is the lead story, and they can't even get through the first clause in the first sentence without defining what he said as racist. Well, that's patently wrong. And that tells you that the news media isn't too terribly ambitious because they didn't bother to look up. In other words, everybody in the office said it was racist, therefore it must be. Well, everybody in the office is a flaming liberal. Maybe that's why they call it racist. Maybe you should stop for a moment and think just because the flaming liberals, the herd mentality in your newsroom says it, does not make it so. I picked up a copy this morning, online anyway, but I printed out a piece of it, so I'm actually picking it up. This is from the op-ed pages of the Washington Examiner, which is a conservative alternative to Pravda-on-the-Potomac, a writer by the name of Quinn Hillier. Quinn Hillier does not like Donald Trump. Hillier was one of the never-Trump conservatives. Many of them have since thrown in the towel and they've gotten on board with President Trump. Quinn Hillier has not. He is still a conservative who despises President Trump because President Trump, in his view, is not sufficiently conservative. In other words, President Trump didn't sit around for years smoking his pipe in all the conservative salons around the country discussing articles in National Review, which is what a lot of these think tank guys do. They've never done anything else with their lives. But Quinn Hillier has a piece today, and I think he hits it spot on. Don't agree with this guy much, but let me share this. He's talking about the 4 horsewomen. They had a news conference yesterday. Ayanna Pressley, who is she's a member of that 4, Tlaib being one of the others, along with Ocasio-Cortez and with Omar. Pressley got up and he says Pressley never even used the words racist or racism. And she's the darkest of them all. Her skin color, she's the blackest looking. She's even a darker skin black than Omar. I'm not making that up. You could look at the pictures and make that judgment on your own. It is a judgment, but it is also a fact. You can witness it with your vision. Using the words correctly, she accused Trump of making remarks that were xenophobic and bigoted. That's a far cry from and much more defensible than Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota accusing Trump of white supremacy and of an agenda of a white nationalist. So you see, Pressley did not call him a racist or call it racism. She didn't even call it white nationalism. She just said it was bigoted, and she said it was xenophobic also. Now, you could have an argument there on whether or not it's xenophobic or bigoted. Again, Somalia is a basket case. And I think he primarily was referring to Somalia in the tweet. But what she's saying is a little closer to the truth than what the Washington Post is saying and what her other three horsewomen are saying at this point. Does that make that clear next time you're talking to one of your liberal friends who gets all emotional and wets their pants because he's a racist? You can explain this to them in simple terms and tell them logically what they're saying doesn't make any sense. More on this subject is coming up. But first, we'll check the Ag Report and the weather. It's 6:15. We're at 61. Bill Colley with you on News Radio 1310 KLIX and NewsRadio1310.com.